Welcome in to another edition of the DNVR Draft. Ryan Koenigsberg, joined by Andrew Mason, Andre Simone, Henry Chisholm, and of course Zach Stevens, running it back for a third time here as we play along, trying to figure out what scenarios might unfold in front of the Broncos at 15. A quick shout out to MSU Denver for being the sponsor of this show. Make sure you go to msudenver.edu/online and check out all that they have to offer. But without further ado, let's jump right into the draft here. And your boy has the number one overall pick. And with the number one overall pick, the Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow. I want to ask you guys real quickly, though, do you think there is any chance in the world that this time at the draft, Joe Burrow does not go to the Cincinnati Bengals?
Unless he pulls a John Elway and says, I'm not going to play for you, then no, right?
I think the other thing is if the Dolphins do come in with an offer that is beyond anything that we can conceive, if it's something that may sound ridiculous, like literally 5 first-round picks to Cincinnati for Joe Burrow, then I think the Bengals think about that, but that's, I think, the only thing that prevents Burrow from going back to his home state and being a Bengal.
What about the Panthers coming in with just, an absolute just package of beyond belief?
I think the Bengals would be silly to accept anything like that, because if they're moving back all the way to 7, the Bengals wouldn't be able to get a quarterback there, a good one.
Miami's the more interesting one because, the Bengals did work with Burrow at the Senior Bowl or with Herbert at the Senior Bowl. And that's the kind of the rumor out there that maybe there's some interest there. So maybe a move down and still being able to get Herbert is convenient to some extent.
I think that have to be the only way that would happen because, those rumors have been around that at least a few people inside the Bengals organization actually likes Herbert better. But I mean, odds are they're going to settle on Burrow, and he's the top guy. You have the top pick. You just got to take him.
Who allowed Henry back on this? I thought he was fired. All right, second pick, Mace.
Yep, Washington. You got Ron Rivera coming in there from Carolina, and he's got to go defense. And Chase Young sitting here. With all respect to Joe Burrow, Chase Young is the can't-miss guy in the draft. So Washington's going to take the defensive end from out of Ohio State. Quite possibly the best pure pass rusher in the draft, maybe since even Von Miller, if you want to be bold and go all the way back to 2011. Now, there are questions at quarterback. Are they truly sold on Dwayne Haskins? It doesn't seem like Ron Rivera is sold on him. You could see Kyle Allen starting for them this year, but with Burrow off the board, a chance to upgrade the defensive side, at least allow Ron Rivera to get that side of the ball up to a passable level. Chase Young is really hard to turn down here, and he does play a core position and has a core skill set that you need. Makes Washington's front 7 very interesting if you add Chase Young. They can cause some problems.
Mace, you can't disagree with anything you said. I agree. This is a great pick. But if Kyle Allen is their starting quarterback this year, you have to go Tua or Justin Herbert or Jordan Love at this pick.
Well, it really should be. It should be Dwayne Haskins, and then you get another year to figure out whether he's the guy. Right. But just trying to read the tea leaves here, you get the sense that maybe Ron Rivera thinks of Kyle Allen the way that some in the Broncos coaching staff thought of Trevor Siemian.
And that'll get them far.
Yeah. What's interesting in Washington is this new coaching staff hasn't been able to work with Haskins almost at all.
Right.
Because of the circumstances we're in. So it's a really unique spot where he's almost like just any other rookie. So be an interesting pick at 2.
I hate this because I really like Dwayne Haskins, but the second that he went to Washington, I knew he was in big trouble.
Mm-hmm.
I still love the fact that he showed up for his meeting with the Broncos last year wearing an Elway throwback jersey. He will always have my respect because he did that.
Yep. I love that.
Without a doubt. All right. With the 3rd overall pick in the 2020 draft, the Detroit Lions select the best player left on the board, non-quarterback. And that is Isaiah Simmons. They get an all-around defensive stud, and he fits perfectly in this defense as well. It's a great fit. You get a great player.
Yeah.
He fits perfectly in every defense, right?
He should, but it's especially I think he's a perfect fit with Patricia.
Yeah, Isaiah Simmons is like this interesting wild card in this draft because for me, I can see him going to almost any team on the especially in the top 10. There are a few that obviously are going to go quarterback and whatnot, but like you look at all the other teams that, especially the ones that aren't going quarterbacks, and it's hard to pick a team and say, they definitely wouldn't select Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, but then you look at the Lions in particular and that defensive system they run. We're so multiple, the 3-4, the 4-3. There's so many different jobs that need to be done from play to play, and Isaiah Simmons will have at least a few that he can fill for him on every single down.
Absolutely. All right, Dre.
Yes, the Giants. It's been a lot of messing around with this pick in our first two editions, but I've come in to settle everything and play my best Dave Gettleman here. And we're going to build in the trenches. As tempted as Gettleman would be to only draft defensive tackles after already franchise tagging Leonard Williams, he has to go to the other side of the ball, and they add the impressive specimen in Mekhi Becton on that offensive line. A left tackle like Becton to kind of be that Trent Brown for Joe Judge, who just recently won a Super Bowl on a team that had Brown in a prominent starting role. With Saquon, Daniel Jones, all that RPO stuff, Becton's going to be able to handle his business, not going to be asked to pass protect in long sets and be that tone setter in the run game. That's going to be a really appealing fit for the Giants. Now, there is some connection with the coaching staff and Nick Saban, so Jedrick Wills could be in this mix, but I really think Becton, with that high upside, fits what the Giants and Gettleman would want.
How much of a reach is this? Is it a reach at all? Because in the other two we had him falling all the way to 15, and I know that he's probably the most polarizing offensive lineman.
In the top 10, I think this is reasonable. 4 is on the high end, but I still think, we could easily see any of the top offensive tackles go at this spot, and Becton belongs in that conversation with everyone else.
And speaking of reach, Becton has reach in spades.
Sure does.
All right, Hank.
So in number 5, the Dolphins are going quarterback here, but it's kind of tough to pick which one. I'm settling on Justin Herbert here at number 5 for the Dolphins.
Ooh.
Yeah. I think that there's a lot to like about his game. There are definitely some things you don't like. He kind of turtled in big moments throughout his career. But then you look at the arm strength, he's just like what you're looking for in a quarterback in so many ways. Maybe a little bit introverted, but he's a very smart guy. And I think that, the stories I've heard is that people have kind of rallied around him anyway. I think that he could be a really good quarterback at the next level. And 2 has the injury concerns.
You say he turtled. I say he ducked.
Oh, I see what you did.
That's a dad joke right there, even though you're not a dad.
Yeah, Herbert for me is the least exciting quarterback that is going to go in the first round, in my opinion, unless Jordan Love does, which is a very big possibility. At least of these top 3, he doesn't excite me at all. If the Broncos were in the market for quarterback this year, I would be actively campaigning against Justin Herbert. So I'll tell you what, the Chargers, who are selecting next, are doing backflips right now after your pick.
But Tua, with the situation we're in and no medicals really being available, I think it's going to be really hard to mock him in the right spot, because I think he and some of the more injury-prone players in this draft could really miss out in a year like this.
You mean the videos being tweeted out of him moving around a practice field aren't getting you going?
Oh,
that's not replacing having a doctor check him out for you.
Oh, they're definitely getting me going. I could tell
I
you
didn't
that.
see a lot of social distancing in those videos.
I'll say this, Hank, a lot of people in the chat are saying no absolute possible way that the Miami Dolphins pass on Tua. So defend your take.
Oh, really? I mean, I think you like a lot of what Tua did when he was healthy, but he's been hurt a couple times before. You think he might be hurt again. He's also working in a great system. He's working with Steve Sarkisian. He's working with the best receivers in college football. You know, there are a lot of reasons to think that maybe he isn't just some magician. And then you factor in that Justin Herbert showed that he was able to run a pro-style offense at Oregon. You know, he wasn't putting up the flashy numbers, but the running game was really going, and that's in part because he was putting that team in good situations. You look at the way he throws the ball to the sideline, you look at the way he throws the ball downfield, there's just so much to like about Justin Herbert's game that even if you don't necessarily like him, his personality all that much, you think that he could have played better in the bigger moments. There's still so much there with no injury concerns.
Yeah, so I think that I'm not the biggest fan of your pick there, but I think it's also a little bit unrealistic to say there's no way this happens. It's very realistic, in my opinion, that that Tua didn't pass the Dolphins physical, and they don't feel comfortable with him health-wise. You know, I'm sure that there's some people in that front office that would want to try and close their eyes to that, but if their people are saying, hey, you know, we don't trust this, you can't make that pick at 5, I think. So it's not what I think is going to happen, but I can't say it's completely unrealistic. All right. So like I said, when you made that pick, the Chargers ran to the virtual podium and selected Tua Tagovailoa with their pick. It's an easy pick. Broncos country is putting their heads in their hands. They are very mad at the Dolphins for allowing this to happen. But that's an easy fit for them. And I actually think there are some interesting parallels between the way that Tua plays and the way that Phillip Rivers played at his best.
This is fantastic.
Just in terms of the short range accuracy.
Yeah, and this is a fantastic pick for the Chargers. Like you said, bad news for the Broncos. The Broncos really hope that these last 2 picks were flipped, where Justin Herbert's the one staying in the division and not Tua. Win healthy. We had a listener say that, you know, a hot take, Tua will be better than Joe Burrow when healthy. I don't think that's that crazy of a hot take at all, because that is how good Tua can be. And of course, just like we talked about with LaVisca, that it is a big if with Tua.
It's a huge if. I really think this year, with the lack of information we're going to have, guys like Tua and Visca could really be hurt. I don't think he's a lock for even the top 10. So, I mean, that's just the NFL for you.
Now, in non-lock for the top 10, do you think there's a scenario where even Jordan Love goes ahead of Tua because of the injury concerns?
I think if some teams have had to take him off their board, Tua that is, because of injuries, then we could see guys like Love be overdrafted, because all of a sudden you just took one of the top names off the board, and you know, quarterback is always one of those positions with limited options.
What a mistake that would be.
Wouldn't be the first time the NFL overthought it a little bit. All right, Mace, you're on the board.
Carolina Panthers on the clock. Defensive line is a mess for them. You could go in one of 2 directions. And I'm going to throw a little bit of a curveball here. Going for JAVON Kinlaw out of South Carolina, staying in the Carolinas. The one thing about Kinlaw, not as refined as Derrick Brown out of Auburn, but it can be argued he is a better pure pass rusher from the interior, and you're looking for a premium skill to add with a top 10 pick. Carolina needs more interior pass rush. JAVON Kinlaw, I love what we saw from him at the Senior Bowl. Love what you saw from him this past season. Carolina's going to cut the brakes a little bit on the defensive line class and take JAVON Kinlaw in my mock pick here.
Wow. That's interesting. I mean, you know, we talked about this with the Broncos, and we talked about the potential of Derrick Brown falling, which isn't as likely, and talked about JAVON Kinlaw. And I said it then, I think Kinlaw might be a better fit for what the Broncos are trying to do. So in this case, you know, I could see a scenario where the Panthers feel the same way about Kinlaw. He's not as much of a refined prospect, but in terms of creating havoc from a pass rush perspective, he's certainly the top option from there.
Yeah, perhaps a higher ceiling than Derrick Brown, with a premium skill that everybody is looking for more and more. And you need the interior. Not that you don't need the pass rush from the edge, but the interior pass rush, that's harder to find. That's a more rare skill set.
Yeah, and as you said, that's a premium skill set. My only gripe would be ahead of Jeff Okuda. Because that's how the board had fallen so
It's
far.
how it fell.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. But I could see Kinlaw going ahead of Brown all day.
I mean, we got someone in the chat right now saying, okay, Okuda's here at 8. Should the Broncos just be making every call they can to the Cardinals right now?
No.
Wow.
I'd call him. Now, I wouldn't give up the farm to move up to 8, but I'd be on the phone right now if I were the Broncos. Okuda is a transformative player potentially for the secondary. And then, you know what? Maybe you can't get all that you want in terms of wide receiver, offensive tackle, but Jeff Okuda ought to be, if you get him, he ought to be your cornerback 1 within a year.
Yeah.
Well, and with the 8th overall pick and the Arizona Cardinals on the clock, they are thrilled by some of the mistakes that teams ahead of them have made. There's a lot of defensive talent on the board, but they are thrilled with the New York Giants going with Mekhi Becton earlier, leaving Tristan Wirfs available for them. They believe he is the perfect tackle to protect Kyler Murray. They're going with him very, very close. Once Derrick Brown fell, they were very close to taking him, but instead staying put on the offensive side of the ball. You got to protect your young quarterback, going with Tristan Wirfs.
Wow. The Jaguars are now also doing backflips.
Yeah. The Jaguars in an impossible situation, very likely to trade down prior to this. Now, forget it. We are taking Okuda all day, every day, twice on Sunday. He's just perfect. You know, you lose Jalen Ramsey, you lose AJ Bouye, of course. You have 2 first-rounders, and you could have easily waited for that CB2 with that second first-rounder. But when you have Okuda drop in your lap, there's nothing to do about it. Interesting how now this run on offensive linemen has pushed down some of these better defenders with Derrick Brown and Okuda, potential options for the Jags here. Who would have thought it? But yeah, what was one of the more unpredictable picks in this mock becomes kind of the easiest of all.
Dre, where do you have Okuda on your board?
He is 5th. Yeah.
Okay. And so he's behind 2 quarterbacks?
2 quarterbacks and Simmons.
And then what's the other one? Oh, and Chase Young.
You're right.
So
Chase
you have
Young
him. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a drop there for the Jaguars. They feel a lot better about trading AJ Bouye to the Broncos now.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. Number 10, the Cleveland Browns will take Andrew Thomas, the tackle from Georgia. And the reason is I think that they're going to look for somebody who's ready to go right away. And I think that Andrew Thomas is that guy. I think that they want to protect Baker Mayfield off the bat. I don't really like the guy that they brought in to try to fill that hole in case they don't draft a tackle. It just is kind of a need, even with Derrick Brown staring you in the face. I mean, they're kind of full there. I think if Okuda is still around, then you want to pair him with Denzel Ward. Throw Greedy Williams in there. It could be a great group of cornerbacks, but this is just too obvious, I think.
Yeah, that's a good way. You know, at 10 is a really good spot for what the Browns need. I mean, I feel like they can really sit back and just let whatever happens and know that they're going to get a guy that they like at 10. It seems like every time we've done this draft, they've had their pick of a good crop there at 10. And it's why, you know, a couple times we've talked about the Broncos trying to get into that top 10 just because of the way things have been going in really the top 7. Once you get to 8, it's like, okay, now is when everything that you like is in front of you, and you're seeing these teams like the Browns just kind of get their pick of the litter or close to it every time here.
If that ball gets to Hunter Renfrow on the 2-point conversion there in week 17, just saying.
So true.
Shelby Harris. Well, we might be talking about Shelby Harris for 10 years, depending on who goes there. All right. Well, at number 11, the Jets are here, and they also feel pretty good about the way things have gone, but they just can't get it out of their head about how much they invested in their quarterback a couple years ago, and they've got to protect him. So before they all go off the board, they select JEDRICK Wills.
What else were you thinking here? Wide receiver, probably?
Yeah, I mean, wide receiver, could have even honestly gone with Derrick Brown. They do need edge help. It would probably be a little bit of a reach on Chason, but yeah, I think, when you have invested in a quarterback in the way that they have, you just can't get that out of your mind when you're picking here. Like, you got to double down on what you did to get Sam Darnold.
Yeah, just seems less and less likely that one of those top offensive tackles can drop. And I mean, those reports that came out yesterday kind of make sense.
Yep. All right, Raiders.
Interesting possibilities here because there are some long-term needs on the defensive line. But you look at the Raiders receiving core right now, it's Tyrell Williams and Hunter Renfrow is a good slot guy, Nelson Aguilar, Zay Jones.
Who?
Exactly. And you can get a wide receiver one, maybe not elite in every skill set, but good across the board, and you can plug him in there, play him right away. Is going to help you out. Jerry Jeudy going to the Las Vegas Raiders, number 12 overall.
Yeah, that's not good news for the Broncos, as all of us absolutely love Jerry Jeudy, and that would be a smart pick for the Raiders.
And yeah, Al Davis, he hasn't been in that draft room in 9 years. Now, not every pick last year was the right one. I think we can all argue that Josh Allen should have been the edge rusher they went for, not Cleveland Farrell. But there were some good picks throughout the draft for Mike Mayock and John Gruden in their first draft together last year. Jerry Jeudy makes a lot of sense, and I think he can come in and have an immediate impact on the Raiders in much the same way Amari Cooper did when he came in back earlier in the Jack Del Rio era.
This, with the 49ers on the clock with the 13th overall pick, this pick has been turned in since actually a couple picks from now. Once they saw it was going this way, they are thrilled. Bottles are popping with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. CeeDee Lamb going to the San Francisco 49ers. And boy, just a perfect fit. Probably their number one receiver on the board from the get-go. And this is just a huge spark for their offense. Another weapon to add to what Kyle Shanahan's got going on. I thought the 49ers were going to have to go with like CJ Henderson, which would not be a sexy pick, was maybe going to call John Elway, see about a trade back, but nope, not here. CeeDee Lamb's on the board. It's CeeDee all day.
Yeah, I think that's 2 times now that's fallen to them. And if we call up John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan and tell them about this, they're going to be really excited. So that's a really good fit for them.
One thing, though, before we move on really quick, if Derrick Brown is on the board there, and of course the 49ers trading DeForest Buckner, isn't Brown somebody they think about here at 13 if he's on the board?
They think about it, but that would mean 5 straight years of the 49ers picking defensive linemen. So it's something they think about, but they also think, okay, we can just add another 5th year on, and then we're going to have to trade one of these guys soon, or we can get a great wide receiver.
You know what, though? They got a GM in John Lynch who knows what it's like to play behind a great defensive line up front, as he did back in Tampa Bay back in the late 90s.
It's true.
All right, real quick, someone requested this in the comments, so I'm going to give it to them. They want a recap of the way the board has fallen to this point. So I'll go quickly. 1, Joe Burrow. 2, Chase Young. 3, Isaiah Simmons. 4, Mekhi Becton. 5, Justin Herbert. 6 to the Chargers is Tua. 7 to the Panthers is JAVON KINLAW. 8 to the Cardinals, Tristan Wirfs. 9 to the Jags is Jeff Okudah. 10 to the Browns is Andrew Thomas. 11 to the Jets is JEDRICK Wills. 12 to the Raiders is Jerry Jeudy. 13 to the 49ers is CeeDee Lamb. And that leaves us here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Andre picking at 14.
Yeah, I got the more complex picks of the top 15, which I enjoy. But this is definitely the pick that gives me the most pause right now, because Derrick Brown would seem like an obvious fit, but they have Vita Vea. They don't need a nose tackle like that. They're just going to be redundant. No point in spending another top 15 pick that going in that direction. I feel like I spent most of my 20s watching Tom Brady target good receiving backs that were giving Broncos linebackers trouble in coverage. So I would consider DeAndre Swift here for the Bucs, but I think that's a little high. You can find that a little later on. I think what ultimately the Bucs will need to prioritize is strengthening that offensive line. And with the run, I could see another guy get pushed up, and that would be Josh Jones, who, look, this is going to seem like a reach, but he's started 4 years at Houston, been super solid, played really good when he faced Power 5 competition, was extraordinary in the Senior Bowl, really handled his own, improved every day. He doesn't have elite raw tools, but he has the one trait that you pay a premium for, and that's being able to move well in pass protection. And that's why the Bucs reach a little bit here on Josh Jones. And I'd love to hear our local resident Bucs fan here and see what you think, what you would have gone with me.
Well, the board isn't following the way you want it to here. The one thing about Josh Jones is how ready can he be to play? And every practice, every day that's lost because of this altered reality heading into the 2020 season means that he's going to lose time to get ready. And he is raw when compared with most of the top 4 tackles that have already gone off the board. But that being said, Henry Ruggs is on the board here, and if you want to just give Tom Brady another weapon, that is awfully tempting, but you've got to keep Tom Brady upright. I wonder also if the Bucs, if they were in this situation, this is how it presented itself. Maybe they trade down, they could get Josh Jones, but this could also bring them into the Ezra Cleveland conversation as well at tackle.
So that leaves us with the Broncos and Henry picking for them, and a nice selection here. You've got Derrick Brown available. You've got Henry Ruggs available. You've got Justin Jefferson available, who was mocked to the Broncos ahead of Henry Ruggs today by Mel Kiper. So, Henry, the floor is yours.
The Broncos are laughing to the bank here. I'm not really sure who exactly they choose because they have so many great options. I'm going to go with Derrick Brown, though. I'm going to go with Derrick Brown.
Oh,
he's just so talented. That man is strong as an ox. He's massive. He's a walking double team. Like, I don't care if you have Von Miller, Bradley Chubb on your defense. You can't just not double team Derrick Brown. Like, you will wind up with your center in the quarterback's lap. Like, I don't care if it's a 7-step drop. That's just what happens. This man is too big, too strong, too talented not to draft. And I know the Broncos need a receiver more, but imagine this pass rush. If you have Shelby Harris, Jarrell Casey, Von Miller, Bradley Chubb, Derrick Brown in the middle, anchoring all of it, filling up the middle of the field so you can't run against the Broncos even when they are lining up with Bradley Chubb and Von Miller as their defensive ends. This is just the perfect pick for the Broncos, I think. Henry Ruggs is obviously tempting. I think if it's Jerry Jeudy, I pull the trigger there, but with Ruggs, there's depth at receiver. There isn't as much depth that I like at tackle, defensive tackle.
Hank, what is this? Are you trying to be the only Henry in town or what?
No, but actually, I don't know if I like that or not. I don't know if I want to be the only one or not. Wow, people are upset again.
Yeah, I'm reading the comments as they're coming through on the screen right now.
The comments are
People
amazing.
want you fired.
It's Derrick Brown. It's
I
Derrick
know.
Brown. Like,
Yeah.
you can't just not take it. Like, if Okuda's there, if Isaiah Simmons is there, do you take him? I think Derrick Brown is a half step behind those guys. Like, talk about Henry Ruggs dropping in your lap, but you have Derrick Brown dropping in your lap.
Yeah. He is a guy that can change your draft plan, and then you just say, okay, he's BPA, and we'll figure out the rest later. The other thing is, it's not like defensive line is off the Broncos' radar of needs. Shelby Harris is on a 1-year deal. Jarrell Casey's contract effectively says he's year to year. DeMarcus Walker, who can bring some pass rush punch, but is a rotational guy, and that's it. He's coming to the end of his deal. So if you're viewing needs that pop up down the road in 2021 and beyond, And the Broncos, they have made some picks over the years, kind of factoring in 1 year beyond. Brown would make a lot of sense, not only from a skill set standpoint, but also from anticipating what your roster is going to look like in 21 and beyond.
Yeah, this is always funny because the fans always fall in love with certain players in the draft process, and it is very easy to fall in love with Henry Ruggs. So I totally understand why everyone wants him so bad in this situation. But, I go back to a conversation we had starting the day after the Super Bowl, which was, wow, the 49ers, with all of that interior pressure and the way that they handled that defensive line, they were able to slow Patrick Mahomes. Now, the reason why they didn't win that game, in my opinion, is because they didn't have a good enough quarterback. But it wasn't because of the defense. The defense gave them a really great chance. If you line up Bradley Chubb, Shelby Harris, Derrick Brown, Jarrell Casey, Von Miller, you can get pressure on Patrick Mahomes without the need to blitz. You can probably figure out some combinations where you can get 4-man pressure with that group. So while I understand why everyone really wants Ruggs here, it's not a bad pick by any stretch of the mind. This pick would be extremely exciting for the Broncos. And then for the people who saying, okay, well, now they don't have a second wide receiver. Well, as you look, you've still got a Henry Ruggs on the board who's obviously not going to be here long. But Justin Jefferson now gets pushed back a little bit.
Yeah.
You go into, Denzel Mims, Jalen Reagor, even a Laviska Shenault. These guys are now getting pushed down the board because the run on wide receivers hasn't quite happened as quickly as we thought it would be. So if you get Derrick Brown here, you're probably not complaining about the fact that you pass on wide receiver.
You add a top 7 talent to future Hall of Famer Von Miller, top 5 pick Bradley Chubb, 5-time Pro Bowler Jarrell Casey, Shelby Harris. I mean, at what point in the draft with it falling this way is Vic Fangio just calling John Elway every single second saying, oh my gosh, Derrick Brown, he's still there. Should we move up? I mean, at what point do the Broncos say, oh my goodness, this could happen? Because as we talked about on a pod a couple days ago, it's more likely, at least we believe it's more likely, that Javon Kinlaw falls to the Broncos at 15 than Derrick Brown. But we did say it's a slim possibility. And hey, I mean, we've done 3 mock drafts so far, and in one of them, he falls there.
Yeah. So, Henry, you are not fired this time.
Far from it. In fact, for a team that gave DJ Reader a very nice offer, you would value Derrick Brown very highly.
And the other thing, even if the conversation is Javon Kinlaw or Henry Ruggs, I don't think it's a slam dunk you take receiver if those two are the guys you're debating over at pick 15.
Yep. So this one was fun. Probably the most fun one we've done yet. We've got 2 more of these before the Broncos will officially be on the clock next Thursday. Wow, that is coming up quick on us. So make sure you keep tuning in. Make sure to check out msudenver.edu/online. But for now, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to everyone who tuned in.